හැමෝටම තෙරුවන් සරණයි. සදහවත් පින්වතුනි, බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ වදාළේ සබ්බදානම් ධම්මදානම් ජිනාති කියලා. ධම්මදානය තමයි ඊටමත් විශිෂ්ට දෙන්න පුළුවන් දානය. අදත් කාලින්ෆඩ් අමාවතුර ධම්මදාන කමිටුව මගින් සකස් කරන ලද තවත් ධම්මදේශනාවකට තමයි අපි දැන් ලෑස්ති වෙන්නේ. ඊට ප්‍රථමයෙන් මම ඉතා ආඩම්බරයෙන් ආරාධනා කරනවා අපේ තැබිලිගල සමාධි මෑණියන්ට බුද්ධ වන්දනාව පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ කියලා ආරාධනා කරන්න කැමතියි. සමාධි මෑණියෝ.
තෙරුවන් සරණයි පින්වත් හැම දෙනාටම නමස්කාරය කියන්න පන්සිල් සමාදන් වෙන්න.
නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස. නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස. නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස.
බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ဒုတိယံ පි බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ဒုတိယံ පි බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ဒုတိယံ පි ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ဒုတိယံ පි ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ဒုတိယံ පි සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
ဒုတိယံ පි සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
တတိယံ පි බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
တတိယံ පි බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
တတိယံ පි ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
တတိယံ පි ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
တတိယံ පි සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
တတိယံ පි සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි.
සරණාගමනං සම්පුන්නං
ආමවන්තේ
පාණාතිපාතා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
පාණාතිපාතා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
අදින්නාදානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
අදින්නාදානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
කාමේසු මිච්ඡාචාරා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
කාමේසු මිච්ඡාචාරා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
මුසාවාදා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
මුසාවාදා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
සුරාමේරය මජ්ජපමා දට්ඨානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
සුරාමේරය මජ්ජපමා දට්ඨානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
අප සමාදන් වූ මේ උතුම් පංචශීල ධර්මය
සමාදන් වූ මේ උතුම් පංචශීල ධර්මය
අපගේ නිවන් සුව පිණිසම
අපගේ නිවන් සුව පිණිසම
හේතු වාසනා වේවා.
වාසනා වේවා.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
හැමෝම එකට වන්දනා කරමු. ඉතිපිසෝ භගවා අරහං සම්මා සම්බුද්ධෝ විජ්ජාචරණ සම්පන්නෝ සුගතෝ ලෝකවිදු අනුත්තරෝ පුරිස ධම්මසාරති සත්තා දේව මනුස්සාන බුද්ධෝ භගවාති බුද්ධං ජීවිත පරියන්තං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි ස්වාක්ඛාතෝ භගවතා ධම්මෝ සම්දිට්ඨිකෝ අකාලිකෝ ඒපස්සිකෝ ඕපනයිකෝ පච්චත්තං වේදිතබ්බෝ විඤ්ඤෝහිති ධම්මං ජීවිත පරියන්ත සරණං ගච්ඡාමි සුපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ උජුපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ ඥායපටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ සාමීචි පටිපන්නෝ භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ යදිදං චත්තාරි පුරිස යුගාන් අට්ඨ පුරිස පුග්ගලා ඒස භගවතෝ සාවක සංඝෝ ආහුනේයෝ පාහුනේයෝ දක්ඛිනේයෝ අංජලි කරණීයෝ අනුත්තරම් පුඤ්ඤක්ඛෙත්තං ලෝකස්සාති සංඝං ජීවිත පරියන්ත සරණං ගච්ඡාමි නමාමි බුද්ධං ගුණසාගරන්තං සත්තා සදා හුන්තු සුඛී අවේර කායෝ ජිගුජ්ජෝ සකලෝ දුගන්ධෝ ගච්ඡanti සබ්බේ මරණං අහංච නමාමි ධම්මං සුගතේන දේසිතා සත්තා සදා හුන්තු සුඛී අවේර කායෝ ජිගුජ්ජෝ සකලෝ දුගන්ධෝ ගච්ඡanti සබ්බේ මරණං අහංච නමාමි සංඝං නිරාජ ශ්‍රාවකං සත්තා සදා හුන්තු සුඛී අවේර කායෝ ජිගුජ්ජෝ සකලෝ දුගන්ධෝ ගච්ඡanti සබ්බේ මරණං අහංච වන්දාමි චේතියං සබ්බං සබ්බදානේ සුපතික්ඛිතං සාරීරික ධාතු මහා බෝධිං බුද්ධ රූපං සකලං සදා ඉන්ද්‍රනීල වන්නපත්ත සේත කන්ද බාසුර සත්තු නෙත්ත පංකජානි කූඩිදග්ග සාතදා අග්ග බෝධි නාම වාම දේව රුක්ක සන්නිබං Tang visala bodhipada annamami sabbada Yassa mule nisinnova sabbari vijayannaka patto sabban yutan satta vande tang bodhipadaka Ime ete mahabodhi lokanatena pudita ahampi namassami bodhi raja namastute Patamang bodhi pallang kang tutiyan cha anitmisa tatiyan chang kemanan setan catutan ratanagara pancamang ajapalanca mujalindena sattamang Sattaman rajayatana vandetam munisevitam Nivedayami sambuddhang vitaragan mahamuni Nimantayami sugatang lokajetang narasabang Yavata bhagava loke titeya tava sasana Tavata patiganhatu puja lokhanukampaya Ganasarappadiptena dipena tamadansina Tilokadipan sambuddham pujayami tamonuda Sugandhikaya vadanang ananta gunagandhina Sugandhina hangandena pujayami tathagata Varnagandha gunopeta etang kusuma santasi pujayami munindas siripada sarorve pujemi buddhang kusumena nena Punyena metena labami mokkha Puppang velayati atai dhammi Kayo tatayati vinasabhava Adivase tuno bante Unhodakam parikappita Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttama Adivase tuno bante Sito dekam parikappita Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttama Adivase tuno bante gilana paccayang nima anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttama Adivase tuno bante besajjam parikappita Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttama Adivase tuno bante sabban saddaya pujita Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttama තුන් ලෝකයටම අග්‍ර වූ තුන් ලෝකයටම ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ වූ තුන් ලෝකයටම ශාන්ති නායක වූ අපගේ සම්මා සම්බුදු රජාණන් වහන්සේගේ අනන්ත වූ බුදු ගුණ ස්කන්ධයට මේ සියලුම බුද්ධ පූජාවෝ සංසාර දුකින් අත මිදීම පතා නිර්වාණ ශාන්තිය පතා පූජා කරමි පූජා වේවා පූජාම වේවා සාදු 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 කායේන වාචා චිත්තේන පමාදේන මයා කත අච්චයං කමමේ බන්තේ භූරි පඤ්ඤ තථාගත කායේන වාචා චිත්තේන පමාදේන මයා කත අච්චයං කමමේ ධම්ම සංවිත්තික අකාලික කායේන වාචා චිත්තේන පමාදේන මයා කත අච්චයං කමමේ සංඝ සුපටිපන්න අනුත්තර ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමු සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තිය ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං හෝතු සබ්බ දුක්ඛා පමුච්ඡතු නිබ්බානං තස්ස පච්චයෝ හෝතු ආකාසට්ටා ච බුම්මට්ටා දේවානාගා මහිත්‍තිකා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරන් රක්ඛන්තු ලෝක සාසනං ආකාසට්ටා ච බුම්මට්ටා දේවානාගා මහිත්‍තිකා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරන් රක්ඛන්තු දේශනං ආකාසට්ටා ච බුම්මට්ටා දේවානාගා මහිත්‍තිකා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරන් රක්ඛන්තු මම් පරන්ති ඉදම්මේ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදම්මේ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදම්මේ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ එත්තාවතා ච යම්මේහි සම්පතං පුඤ්ඤ සම්පදා සබ්බේ දේවා අනුමෝදන්තු සබ්බේ භූතා අනුමෝදන්තු සබ්බේ සත්තා අනුමෝදන්තු සබ්බ සම්පත්ති සිද්ධියා උතුම් සම්බුදු බලයෙන් පසේ බුදු ගුණ බලයෙන් රහතුන්ගේද තේජසින් සියලු රැකවරණ වේවා වාත දෙරණත නොහැර දක්වා අකනිටා බඹලොව කට භූත යක්ෂින් වෙසෙන පිසසු මැසි මඳුරු පුරු කුඹුවා සතත මිතුරුව මැද හසුන්මින් අති මිතුරු ගුණ යහළුවන් අපේ ගුරුවර දෙමව්පියෝ සහ සියලු නෑසියෝ ගනිත්වා මෙපින් සාදු 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 සියලු සත්වයෝ නිදුක් වෙත්වා නිරෝගී වෙත්වා සුවපත් වෙත්වා දුකින් මිදෙත්වා නිවන් ලබත්වා සියලුම සත්වයෝ නිදුක් වෙත්වා නිරෝගී වෙත්වා සුවපත් වෙත්වා දුකින් මිදෙත්වා නිවන් ලබත්වා සියලුම සත්වයෝ නිදුක් වෙත්වා නිරෝගී වෙත්වා සුවපත් වෙත්වා දුකින් මිදෙත්වා නිවන් ලබත්වා සීලවන්තං ගුණවන්තං පුඤ්ඤක්ඛෙත්තං අනුත්තරං දුර්ලභේන මයා ලද්දං කස්සිතුං වන්දිතුං වරං සාරිපුත්තාදි තේරාණං ආගතං පටිපාටිය සද්දා සීලං දයාවාසං බුද්ධ පුත්තං නමාමහං සීලවන්තං ගුණවන්තං පුඤ්ඤක්ඛෙත්තං අනුත්තරං දුර්ලභේන මයා ලද්දං පස්සිතුං වන්දිතුං වරං මහා ප්‍රජාපති තේරීනං ආගතං පටිපාටිය සද්දා සීලං දයාවාසං බුද්ධ දීතා නමාමහං සාදු 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 හොඳයි හැමෝම සිහිපත් කරගන්න බුද්ධ රත්නයට බුද්ධ පූජා පැවැත්වීමෙන් අත්පත් කරගත්තා වූ ඒ මහා පින් කුසල් සම්භාරය මේ මිහිකත රකින්න මතු බුදු වෙන පත්තිනි මෑණියන් වහන්සේට අපගේ ඉෂ්ට දේවතාවුන් වහන්සේලාට සතරවරන් දෙවි හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේලාට ඇතුළුව 33 කෝටියක් දෙවි දේවතාවුන් වහන්සේලාට අනුමෝදන් වෙත්වා උන්වහන්සේලාගේ දිව්‍ය සැප සම්පත් දිව්‍ය තේජස් තව තවත් වර්ධනය කරගනිත්වා උන්වහන්සේලා පතන්නා වූ බෝධියකින් අමා මහ නිවන් සුව ළඟා කරගනිත්වා කියලා සාදු කියන්නේ ඒ වගේම ඔබ අප සියලු දෙනාගේම නමින් එදා පටන් අද දක්වා මිය ගියා වූ සියලුම නෑපරපුර හිත මිත්‍රාදීන් සියලු දෙනාම අප කරගත්තා වූ මේ මහා පින් කුසල් සතුටින් අනුමෝදන් වෙත්වා ඒ අයගේ සසරගාමී ජීවිත භවගාමී ජීවිත පරලොව ජීවිත සැපවත් කරගනිත්වා ඒ හැමෝම සසර දුකින් අත මිදෙත්වා පතන්නා වූ බෝධියකින් අමා මහ නිවන් සුව ළඟා කරගනිත්වා කියලා සාදු කියන්නේ ඒ වගේම අප සියලු දෙනාම කරගත්තා වූ මේ මහා පින් කුසල් බලයෙන් මේ සියලු දෙනාම නිදුක් වේවා නිරෝගී වේවා සුවපත් වේවා උතුම් චතුරාර්ය සත්‍ය අවබෝධ වේවා දීර්ඝායුෂ ලැබේවා මේ සියලු දෙනාටම බුද්ධ රත්නේ අනන්ත ගුණ බලයෙන්, ධම්ම රත්නේ අනන්ත ගුණ බලයෙන්, සංඝ රත්නේ අනන්ත ගුණ බලයෙන්, දලදා සමිඳුගේ පිහිටෙන් රුවන්වැලි මහා සෑයේ ද්‍රෝණයක් ධාතුන් වහන්සේලාගේ පිහිටෙන්, ශ්‍රීමා බෝධි රාජානන් වහන්සේගේ පිහිටෙන් සිතක් වේවා, සාන්තියක් වේවා. සියලු දෙනාටම තෙරුවන් සරණයි, තෙරුවන් සරණයි, තෙරුවන් සරණයි.
සදාවත් පින්වතුනි, මම අපේ සමාධි මෑණියන්ට ඉතාමත්ම හදවතින්ම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. අද බුද්ධ පූජාව පවත්වාගෙන ගියාට මෑණියන්ට තව ඉදිරියට දීර්ඝායු ලැබේවා, නිරෝගී සුව වැඩි වේවා, සියලු යහපත් ප්‍රාර්ථනා ඉෂ්ට වේවා, සෑම ව්‍යාපාරයකටම අප කියනවා සාර්ථක වේවා, නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා, සෑම කරන දෙයක්ම ඉතාමත්ම අනාර්ග ලෙස ඉෂ්ට වේවා, සාර්ථක වේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමින් තවත් ආයිත් අපිත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමින් මම මේ වදන් සත්‍ය නවත්තනවා. සාදු සාදු සාදු.
Sujato හාමුදුරුවන්ගේ ධර්මදේශනාව ඊළඟට තියෙන්නේ. අතාමාට තව විනාඩි 2කින් විතර සහභාගී වෙනවා මේ Zoom session එකට. පොඩ්ඩක් තව විනාඩි 2ක් විතරින්.
Okay, very good. So now it appears I am unmuted. Is that correct?
So
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're on Zoom. Bante, I'm speaking on behalf of the committee and all the friends who have joined. I think there are many have joined. So I would like to invite you to start the Dhamma talk, Dhamma sermon. And if you don't mind, we can suggest something to talk about as well.
Please.
Yeah, just we were thinking about about Buddha's teaching for this environment, like where people are working from home, kids are studying from home,
Okay.
they stress, some they can't go out, frustrated, and we would like to, if you can touch on that part, like how Buddha's teaching will help this stuff, that would be great. And for everyone, I'll just tell a few housekeeping things. If you don't mind, if anyone wants to ask a question, there is a button at the bottom, a reaction. You click on that one, then raise your hand. Right, so our administrator or the moderator will get you at the end. Do you mind asking question, Bante?
No,
At
no,
the
no.
end or?
Please, I like that. So people can ask questions in the chat, or if
Yeah.
they want to ask questions at the end, if we have time, we can do that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you can post a message on the chat as well. That's another way of doing it.
Yeah.
So it's over to you, Bante.
And just remind me, Gayanta, what time are we finishing up this evening?
It would be around 8:30. Is it okay?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Okay, so thank you so very much for inviting me to come and share the Dhamma with you today. It is very wonderful to have this opportunity, and always a delight to be able to spend some time sharing the Dhamma with people. Now, would you like to begin with the Pansil?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, we recite Pansil together. Okay, very good. And just one thing that I just ask people, if you don't mind, if you can turn your cameras on, then I appreciate that, because I like to see who is there. Oh, well, thank you so much, Chaminda. Now I can see you. Is that your daughter there? So that's very nice. Hello.
That's a good idea.
I can see there Prem and Naina. See, now I can see all my friends there. So that's much nicer. And I know if you're sometimes, if you're watching while sitting on the toilet or something like that, then you don't want to turn it on. Hopefully none of you are doing that. But if you are, then please don't turn on your camera. But
it's a different environment, isn't it?
Hopefully we are watching, because we should, if we are watching Dhamma talks online, we should make an effort to do it in a respectful manner, not just sort of lounging around in bed or something like that. So even if we can't make it to the temple, then still it's worthwhile to take care to do it in a, it's still the Dhamma, and we should listen to it in a respectful manner. Okay, very good. Good to see you all. Let us recite the Pansil together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kame sumichachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Suramera majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Imani pancha sikkhapadani silena sugating yanti silena bhoga sampada. Silena nibbhuting yanti tasma silang visodhaye. Okay, very good. All right, so I might say a few words on Dhamma, on the topic that was just requested, and then perhaps we might do a little bit of meditation together a little bit later on. Would that be something you'd like to do?
That's a good idea. Yeah,
Okay,
we would like to do that.
We'll do
Yeah.
some short meditation together, but I'll say a few
Yes.
words to begin with to set the context, set the scene. So we have come together to share Dhamma and to be part of a community that is supporting each other to live well in this life. And one of the circumstances that we are inevitably faced with is the COVID pandemic, which has impacted all of our lives so very greatly. None of us thought that life would be like this. None of us imagined it. It just, well, the only people who did imagine it was the what do they call them? I remember the people who study epidemics for a living. They thought that it would be like this. They knew what was coming and they warned us, but we didn't listen, did we? No. Why? Because we're silly and we had short-tempered, and it's not as if this was unexpected. But still, we were caught by surprise, and here we are now, coming up to nearly 2 years, and still in lockdown, more cases than ever, no end in sight. It's not good. And so this inevitably takes its toll on all of us. And so this is something that we need to have some kind of spiritual response and spiritual meaning. We have to find a path of meaning through these troubles. Now, for me, the first thing to think about when I first heard of this pandemic and we were first being shut down and having to close our talks and these kinds of things, first thing that I thought about was compassion for the poor virus. Because the virus was just sitting there in, I don't know, bats or whatever, quite happily before we came along. I don't know what it's like to be a virus. I don't even know what it's like to be a bat. But there it was, living its nice little virusy life, I guess. And then something comes along and disturbs it, something loud and brash and noisy and destructive, machines, people with machines and cutting down the forests, or we don't know exactly how it happened. But we do know the general outline is that once upon a time, this virus was found in animals in nature, and now it's found in humans. That we know. And now the virus has found another place to live. It wasn't, it was happy just living there in the bats in the forest. And now it's found another place, roomy and spacious and used to traveling frequently on aeroplanes and with lots of protein to nibble on. And that's what we call human beings. And so this little virus comes into us humans and finds its home and starts living there. It's just living. It's just happy. It's okay. It's not unnatural. It's not evil. It's not bad. That's just how it is. It's just an organism. And of course, it's destructive to us, but maybe that's our karma. I mean, we live in the earth and we're destructive to the earth. That's how this virus came about. This is kind of a circle of life. So when we kind of think about it like that, we should not think of this pandemic as being something that is unnatural or unexpected or something that sort of we are subject to. We're not the kind of the victims of this pandemic. We think of ourselves that way. We think that we're powerless. We think that somehow it happened to us. But it didn't happen to us. We were there. We were part of it. And we are participants in it. And this is why one of the things that this whole pandemic has really shown us is the importance of our social and communal activities. And one of the key words that's come out of this pandemic is the idea of social distancing. The idea that if you come too close to other people, then maybe you'll make them sick. And so out of care and respect for others, we have to keep our distance. And we wear our masks out of care and respect for others. And we get our vaccinations for our own health and well-being, yes, but also for the health and well-being of people around us. And we begin to realize that our own individual health and well-being is not something that's separate. It's not separate from the well-being of the forest. It's not separate from the well-being of the bats or the virus. And it's not separate from the well-being of our neighbors, of the people we pass in the street. All of these things are interconnected. And our response to that, our response to the pandemic must be our response. And I think normally, or too often sometimes, we get used to thinking of the idea that health is something individual. Oh, I got a cold. Oh, I twisted my ankle. I got something wrong with me. But health is something which happens to us, and it happens to us as a community. So we can think in the pandemic, we can think in terms of the number of individual cases that we have, but we can also think of it in terms of a sickness in our society as a whole, as a suffering, as a calamity that has visited us all, regardless of whether we happen to be one of the ones who have become sick. And we know that that calamity is born very unequally. It's unequally by country. Some countries like Sri Lanka have had many higher cases, and Australia is still relatively low cases, unequally by wealth. Rich nations tend to be able to buy all the vaccines, protect themselves. It's unequal by age. It's unequal by all kinds of factors. But at the end of the day, it's something that we can only respond to together, by working together. And so part of what that means is that to continue through it, we have to support each other. The Buddha taught us that old age, sickness, death is part of life. And we hear these teachings. We know, yes, that's what the Buddha said. We know that that's true. And yet we kind of hope that it isn't. We're still kind of disappointed when we see the gray hairs. We know that we're going to get old, but we kind of wish not today, maybe next time we'll get old. Well, oh, yeah, okay, I understand beings are subject to sickness, but not me, not now, not this sickness. And so we want to try to push it off into the future or pretend that it isn't there. But this is just the reality. This is just the world. And once this one is over, there'll be another one. There'll be another pandemic, another calamity, another challenge that we all have to face. Climate change, the extinction crisis, all of these things are not going away, pollution crisis. These things are not vanishing, they're not going away, and they will be delivering us with more and more challenges as life goes on. So we have to live with that. And living with them is very peculiar, and particularly with the pandemic, because it's very slow. It's a kind of a soft disaster. It's not like the bushfires that we had a couple of years ago where, you can just see how everything's on flame and it's so dramatic. But with this one, nothing much is happening. Some people are getting sick and it's just there. It's hovering in the background. And yet it changes how we live, it changes all of our lives. So here we are, stuck indoors, stuck working from home. Sometimes that's good. And we talk to different people about working from home and so on. Some people like working from home. No commuting, yay, no parking, yeah, that can be good. Can be good when you get to spend more time with your family. And I think especially for like working parents who can spend more time with young kids, then I think that can be good. At the same time, it's also very challenging because when kids are home from school, then you have to look after them. And that's a huge extra job for the parents. And if the parents are up for it, then okay, it's manageable. But with everything else. It's just another part of that struggle, and it just adds on more to it. So these are some of the things that we have to face. And when we kind of step back from it, we sort of ask, well, why? What are some of the sort of underlying issues that are being brought to the fore here? And I think one of those underlying issues is that we have allowed ourselves to let our culture be shaped by the idea of individuality, the idea that it's for me, that it's my thing. And the problem with that is that it's great as long as things are going okay. And at the moment things are not going okay, that's when you realize that how much you need each other and how much we need our friends. And this is why we have the idea of Kalyanamitta. And so in Buddhism, it's very interesting that even though the Buddha in some ways was a very solitary figure, he meditated alone in the forest. When we see an image of the Buddha, we see him sitting cross-legged with his eyes shut or almost shut. And we see that he spoke in praise of seclusion and solitude so many times. And it's true that silence and solitude are essential for meditation. And if we want to be able to find a deep level of peace in our minds, we have to have that degree of quiet. But the Buddha was also very cognizant of the fact that people need people. We need each other. And we need to look after each other. And in the Sangha, in the way that the Buddhist monks and nuns are organized, there is a lot about how Sangha is there to support each other. And the Vinaya that gives a guidance for the monastic rules of conduct gives us, much of it is about rules of morality and good conduct and these kinds of things. But a lot of it is also about ways of living in harmony, about ways of being able to talk about things, about ways of procedures and meetings and all of those kinds of things. And when we look at how the Buddha described all of those things, he brought to them the wisdom and the compassion and the clarity that he brought to all of his other teachings. And so we have a lot of really useful guidance for how to live together and how to get along with each other. So one of the things to remember, especially in this time, is that we are likely to, everyone that we're living with, everyone in our home, everyone who we meet in our circle, everyone is going to be stressed by this to one degree or another. And so we need to extend a little bit of extra love, a little bit of extra care, and a little bit of extra forgiveness to everybody. And just remember that sometimes people lash out and say things that are stupid and hurtful. It happens. It's okay. Move on. We forgive. Yeah, we forgive. We move on. The Buddha taught us that we can solve the problems of hate in the world. We can solve the problems of people, jealousy and people tearing each other's throats out. We can solve these things with love. We can solve these things with forgiveness. And we can solve these things through letting go. That's how we do it. And so always remember to look out for each other, to listen to each other, if other people are having difficulties or problems in your family, then take them seriously. Don't think that because you can cope, that therefore others can. Sometimes you can do things that they can't. Sometimes they can do things that you can't. So we have to learn to listen to each other and be forgiving. Don't try to force people into one way of coping things, because that fits with how you cope with it. So I have the things that for myself, the things that I do to try to cope with all of this. I have my work with Sutta Central, and so I'm very lucky actually, because I get to do as well as the meditation and other practices that I can do as a monk. But I also have my sort of central work and my translation work, which is always very inspiring and challenging. It's always giving me new problems. I'm always meeting new people. And so it's actually a really kind of exciting, rewarding job that I have. So I'm very lucky. Well, in a way I say I'm very lucky, but also I built it. So it's not so much luck, but I put a lot of hard work into it to actually make that happen over many years. Many of you I know will be working from home. Some of you may be retired, I guess. Some may be not working, helping to look after the family, and some in different kinds of situations. So we all need some time to ourselves. So make sure you reserve that, and make sure that you don't be afraid to ask for it when you need it. Don't be afraid to tell your husband or to tell your kids or to tell your family, oh, I need some alone time. It's all right. And if people are like, why are you going alone or whatever, you don't have to justify yourself. Just say, I'm going for a walk. I'm just going to spend some time by myself. And if they say, why are you doing that? You don't have to explain. You just say, this is what I want. And just remind them, say, I'll be back. I'm not going forever. But everybody needs some time alone, especially when we're spending so much time in all of these lockdowns. So just say, look, I'm just going to, go to my study or go to my room or go for a walk, and I'm going to do some meditation or do some reading or whatever it is, and I'm just going to spend some time alone. And that's okay. Good. Encourage it. It's good. It's nice. And then when people come together, then spend some time together as well. And don't be too kind of too demanding on that. But I do encourage, like especially with families, to make some, and I'm very kind of reluctant to be too prescriptive on this, but I do support parents to limit the screen time for their kids. And it's up to you to make your decisions about how you want to parent your kids. So I'm not a parent and I can't make these decisions, but I do think that it's a good idea to have a cap, have a limit on how much kids are going to be using screens. I think it's also important to have a spiritual practice. And as Dhamma practitioners, then we're very lucky. We have our meditation, we have our chanting. So make the most of those things. If you have extra time in the lockdown, then set yourself a target. Read a sutta every day, or listen to a Dhamma talk. Or make sure you do some meditation every day. Give yourself a challenge that's going to push you to do things maybe that you had always been putting off. And I think one of the problems with the lockdown is that it tends to blur time a lot. Like the days bleed into each other and the weeks bleed into each other and the months go past and you're like, oh, is that another year? And we lack a lot of the things that normally will define the progress of time and the progress of the year. So it's easy to let time slip by and just be wasted. So don't let that be you. Make some good use of the time that you have. And if you've got some extra time in the day, great. Do some extra meditation, read some suttas, or even just go for a walk and find some peace inside yourself. as Dhamma practitioners, we have something that is very special. And we might think that we are struggling and going through difficulties, but we have something that most people don't have. We have a spiritual path. We have a set of teachings and values that give our life meaning. We have an understanding of what's right and what's wrong. That's not a small thing. That's a huge thing already. And that means that whatever struggles we might think we're going through, we can still be a refuge for others. Yeah? And that's up to us to make that choice. And one of the biggest ways that we can help ourselves in this time is by helping others. By not just being a victim, not just being someone that this happens to. We are here, we participate in it. We are part of the world that created this virus. That's just how it is. We live in this world where we're all together. Every action and every choice that we make reverberates in so many different ways. If you go down to the shop, you buy a single product, then the product is sourced from so many different places and so many connections all over the world. And the choices that we make affect people and plants and animals all over the world all the time. So by making a choice to do something good, making a choice to live according to Dhamma, we can make a difference, not just in our lives, but in the lives of so many other people. And that's one of the things that's going to stop us from feeling hopeless, from feeling useless, from feeling lost. And I know sometimes it can be hard to find that. It can be hard to find the thing that we can do that's going to matter to others. But it's there. Don't doubt that. Each of you, each of the people on this call has much that you can offer to others. And so, we have to find what that is and try to express it as best we can. I see, Gamini, I think you have your hand raised. Is that, are you wanting to?
Yes, Bhante, I was going to ask you a question.
Please, yes, please.
I was wondering if you would explain the difference, if any, between mindfulness and awareness.
The difference between mindfulness and awareness.
That's right.
Gamini, can I ask you to give me some more clarification, because it's a fairly general question. Can you explain a bit more specifically exactly what you're looking for?
Right. I relate mindfulness probably mostly to meditation.
Okay.
And awareness to day-to-day life.
Okay.
So I'm trying to find the borders.
Okay.
Where we can define the borders of mindfulness, whether mindfulness can be carried on to day-to-day life,
okay,
or whether they are intermingled, or where the boundaries are.
All right. Okay. So I believe, Gamini, that in the suttas, that what you're referring to there as mindfulness would be sati and awareness would be sampajanya. So so these are two terms we find in the early suttas. Now, so it's important to be aware that these things don't necessarily have the same meaning in English. Like for a lot of people, mindfulness is more about what you're calling awareness. That's why I wanted you to clarify the meaning. So some people would use mindfulness in the sense of being aware of what they're doing during the day. Whereas I think in the suttas, mindfulness is more closely associated with meditation practice, and then sampajanya is more closely associated with mindfulness during daily activities. But of course, they're not completely separated, and they go together pretty much all the time. So yeah, it's valid to sort of think about what the relationship is and what the particular qualities are of these things. So the particular quality of mindfulness, all right? So mindfulness has the word sati has its roots in the idea of memory, all right? Sati means memory. And what that means is that sati provides a continuity for your mind. Think about what memory does. Memory connects the present with the past. It's like it's stitching together all the moments of consciousness and moments of awareness. It's giving you this sense, oh yeah, this is what I did then. And so the same thing is happening when we meditate. And when we sit down to meditate, our minds often will go here and they'll go there. We'll be worried. We'll be thinking of this. We'll be thinking of that. And we forget what it is that we came here to do. That's why we have anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. So what it means is to remember your breath, to remember that you sat down there and this is your job, is to be aware of your breathing. And so you're aware of that breathing on and on and on, and it has that continuity to it. And the mindfulness is what knits and sews that continuity and creates that. That's where the peace comes from, because the peace comes from that continuity. You're no longer going out and going everywhere. Now, sampajanya has another kind of quality. So sampajanya has a quality of wisdom. But not, sampajanya or awareness is not, I translate it these days as either awareness or situational awareness, depending on the context. A situational awareness is a technical term in psychology. And originally, it's an idea that has an interesting history. It originated in studies of fighter pilots. And they found that when they had different sort of trained fighter pilots, that sometimes some would survive and some wouldn't. And they had the same training and the same everything. And they couldn't figure out, why is it that some are just much more successful than others? And there was something that they weren't taking into consideration. It wasn't reaction time, it wasn't experience, it wasn't the equipment they were using. And they eventually started talking about this thing called situational awareness. And for a fighter pilot, that means knowing what's going on around you, knowing who's behind, who's in front, all of the things that's happening, and having a sense of how you can make your way in that. That's where the idea began. And actually it's very similar to the idea of sampajanya in Buddhism. So the idea of sampajanya is like a contextual or situational awareness. So understanding around you what's going on. So sampajanya, for example, when I was talking earlier about, like, here we are in a pandemic, this is part of that situational awareness, because it means being aware of the context that we find ourselves with our family or our colleagues in our home. That, if we understand that everyone's been locked in a house together for 6 months, that our mood is going to be changed and it's going to be different. So kind of understanding that we treat people differently in accordance with it. And situational awareness knows broadly, and it looks at before and after, and it understands the purpose of things. Why are we doing the things that we're doing, right? Why are we doing it? Mindfulness doesn't really understand why we do the things we do, because mindfulness is just focused on what's happening in the present and keeping that awareness in the present. So it's much more precise. Right? So mindfulness is bringing us to like that one specific thing and keeping that in mind. And sampajanya is like, oh, okay, this is kind of the point of it. So sampajanya is the contextual or situational awareness, which is the basic form of wisdom. So it's not like a deep wisdom. It's not like a wisdom that sees through anicca, dukkha, anatta, or a wisdom that leads to liberation or something like that. It's the beginning stages of wisdom that begins by understanding what I'm doing, where I am, and what is my context. So this is Sampajanya and Sati. So for me, when I talk about this difference, then I always use the lesson that how I personally found the difference between these two things. So when I first learned to meditate, I was in Thailand, and I did a retreat, month-long retreat in a monastery called Wat Rampung in Chiang Mai. And it was very intensive meditation. We were practicing like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, and all doing this very slow mindfulness practice. And so you're just kind of lifting your foot up and then moving it along and noting it. And then when you're kind of noting breathing and everything you had to do, if I was picking up a glass of water, then you had to pick it up very mindfully, and just all this very, very slow mindfulness training. Now, then the retreat finished. And after the retreat was over, the day afterwards, the people who were organizing it had a little bit of a building project that they were doing, just a small thing. They demolished an old kuti, wooden kuti at one end of the monastery, and they wanted to just carry the timbers to the other side of the monastery. It's just a very kind of small job. And they asked a few of the meditators if they could help, and said, sure. And so I came up, and there we are on the building site. And I knew this was the first thing that I had done since my retreat, the first like practical thing I'd done, the first work I'd done, right? From a month of meditating. I thought, okay, fine, let's be mindful, right? Let's not just lose my mindfulness right away, okay? I want to keep my mindfulness and make sure to keep that practice. So I was very careful. I stepped onto the building site, watching where my foot was, very aware of lifting my foot, very aware of putting my foot down. And the very first step that I took, my foot went down onto a rusty nail, and I got a nail in my foot. And that is when I learned the difference between mindfulness and sampajanya. I was perfectly mindful where my foot was, but I had no awareness that actually there's a rusty nail there. Yeah? So this is where, like that very narrow focused mindfulness, that's great, right? That's a great training to do, but it's not appropriate on a building site. There's no wisdom there. Yeah? You need to have a broader understanding. And it's interesting, like if you see people who have a trade, or people who work in these circumstances, then they will have that, like a builder will have that sampajanya. They'll be aware if there's potentially a danger or something on the building site. And so they've kind of trained themselves to have that contextual awareness in that kind of place. So this is what the mindfulness and the sampajanya are. The mindfulness is about keeping something in mind and keeping that focus, especially in meditation. And the sampajanya is about having that broader awareness and contextual understanding. Okay, so I don't know if that's helpful for you, Gamini.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is good.
I am very happy to help. I'm here to serve. Well, we have talked a little bit about living in the pandemic, and we've talked a little bit about meditation. Why don't we do a short meditation together? Would you like to do that?
Yeah,
maybe we can meditate for maybe 10 minutes and then have some questions if there are any more questions from people. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, let's do that. Very good. So I'll do a guided meditation. So if there's anyone here who's new to meditation, I'm sure most of you have meditated before. If there's anyone new to meditation, then just sit comfortably, but alert. Don't be like too sloppy when you're sitting. Bring awareness into your body and into your posture. And become aware of the gentle feeling of the breath as it comes in and goes out. When your mind wanders off, thinking about this and that, just bring it back. Be peaceful. Don't try to focus too hard. Don't try to concentrate too much. Just relax and let the breath calm you down. Let the breath bring a sense of ease into your body. Okay, so now coming near the end of the meditation, just let your awareness come back into the surroundings, into the sights and sounds. And open your eyes. And here we are again. All right, very good. So we have a few minutes left in the evening, and so now is the time for questions. So I'm just having a look at the chat. There's no questions in the chat so far. So please, if you have a question, pop one in the chat. Otherwise, you can do as Gamini has done and raise your hand. Everyone's having a very quiet evening, it looks like. Okay, so if no one has any questions, then, oh, here we go, one. Okay, what is the best meditation we can perform with kids at home? So I'm just looking at the group now, so I see a few of the chats where there are some kids there. How's it going, kids? Hello, going okay? So I'm now seeing, I can't see everybody because I can only see who's on the screen, but I can see, I'm not sure what the kids' name are, but Isumura Pasnayake, and the children, the two girls there. Can I ask what your names are? You can unmute yourself. Oh, I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself. Oh yeah, there we go. Yep.
I'm Panara.
There you go, Panara.
I'm Lathara.
Lathara. How are you, Lathara?
I'm good.
You're well? Okay, very good. How are you coping with all of the lockdowns and everything?
It's going good.
Going okay? You don't mind it too much?
No.
And you're doing school at home at the moment, is that right? Is that hard?
No. Difficult sometimes if the internet doesn't cope with you, but
yeah.
other times it's good.
Ah, you like it, do you?
Mm-hmm.
And who does the teaching? Do your parents help out with teaching?
Yes, if there's any questions, I ask parents.
Okay, and do they know the answers?
Most of them,
Most
of them I ask my teacher.
Okay, very good. Well, they're there to help you for what you can do. So that's good. And but it's weird. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like, but it's very weird. So can I just ask you, because the question was about meditation for kids. So as kids, what's your opinion about meditation? And please be honest.
Okay.
Fun, boring, waste of time, whatever you say is fine.
I find it a bit quiet, more than usual. I'm a bit aware to noise. I think I'm not alone sometimes, but in meditation, I find it's all silent and I have to be aware of myself and what I'm doing.
Right.
So it's a bit hard, but
right.
Yeah.
It can be scary to see yourself, can't it? Right?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, good. And what about your sister? What do you think?
Well, when we went to some Dhamma classes, they have taught us different ways we can think of something. So one of the ways was to count your breathing, to count how many times you breathe.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if you look at something for a while and then you imagine it in your brain, the figure, and then you just think about it the whole time.
Yeah. And when you did that, what was it like?
It was interesting because all around you, it's just you're I guess it's you're on top of a cloud and everything around you just vanished and just you and yourself.
Wow. Okay. That sounds very cool. So, so that sounds good. So you look at, you both kind of made a start at doing meditation. You've got a kind of good idea where you're going. So that's good. But meditation, but a few things I'll just say. First of all, meditation is something which is very deep, and it can take you so very far. So if like don't be in a hurry with it, is all I'm saying. You know, it's not something you're just going to get mastered and then it's done, right? It's something that can be with you your whole life and which you can keep coming back to. But all of those things that you're saying there, it's all about the mind, isn't it? Yeah, it's all about your mind. And it's so weird because we carry our mind inside ourselves all the time. We never look at it. It's so weird. And then when you look at it, you think, oh my goodness, what's that? So you're learning about it, and it can be confronting, right? It can be weird, and it can be scary, and it can be boring, and it can be all of those things, because all of those things, weirdness and scariness and boringness and happiness and all of those things, they're also part of your mind as well. So everything becomes more intense when you meditate. You can feel like a little itch on the side of your skin, and it becomes like, so, oh my God, I've got to scratch it. And it's just an itch. And normally you don't care. Normally you have itches all the time and you're like, whatever. But you have like an itch in your meditation. No, I'm going to meditate. I'm not going to scratch it. I'm not going to scratch it. I'm not going to scratch it. Okay, now I'm scratching it. And it's telling you about something about your mind, right? So each time you're doing that, you're learning. And so what happens is that if you do that regularly, your mind gets better. Not just you get better at math, or you get better at English, or you get better at something like this. You get better at everything. Your memory gets better. Your clarity gets better. You can think better. You can imagine better. Your creativity gets better. Everything becomes better. And that's good. And all you have to do is keep it up as a regular practice. And, you know, big advantages. If you meditate, number one, you don't have to study so much. Yes. Big win, right? Why? Because you have that clarity and that attention, and you hear and you understand things the first time, or maybe the second time, and you can remember it and you go over it. And because your mind is more clear, then you don't have to spend so much time studying. You get it right the first time. Yeah? That's a big advantage. So if you can, you know, if you're doing studying at home and that, and then you have some extra time because you're not traveling to and from school and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, try to get like a regular practice, even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. And what I try to recommend to people is to start with like at least say if you can do 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. All right. Don't try to do it every day because you're going to miss a day and then you'll feel bad. So if you've got 5 days a week, you can miss a day, and you've still got another day you can miss, and you're doing all right. So that's okay. So do 5 days a week to start with, and try to help each other, right? So you can be like meditation buddies. So you can like make a pact that you can help each other to meditate, and you can talk to your mum and dad about it as well, get them to help you and to do it together. As for you know, practices with parents to encourage kids to meditate, I think one of the important things is that it has to be something that you know, you create like an interest. You know, people have to want to do it. Just to sort of force people to sort of sit down and adopt a posture for 10 minutes is not going to be very useful. But actually, you know, it's really good to talk to you two, because, you know, when you're talking about it, you know, clearly you're actually doing the meditation and you're getting some kind of result from it, you know, and so that's really good. So parents have to, you know, try to figure out a way to make that interest in the meditation. And then I think that will be there. And then if the parents are meditating, one thing that you can do is to, like, you can have like a place for meditation, maybe next to your shrine, and you have like your meditation seat, and you can set that up, and then you can set there a place for your kids to meditate as well. And so you can say, like, everyone can come and meditate. You don't have to, but, you know, if you want to come, then you can. And then people don't feel left out, because otherwise, you know, you can feel a bit kind of strange. You feel a bit excluded if mum's going off and meditating and just ignoring us. So sometimes if you do that, then the kids are going to want to come and annoy you just because it's fun. But if you say them, then they can come and join you meditating, then maybe sometimes they will. So that might be helpful. But, you know, it's your family and every family is different and only you can figure out what the right thing to do for you is. Yeah? So, you know, just play around with it, try out some different things. But if you can support each other to get some meditation practice together, then I think that's really good.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay, very nice. So, Gayanta, I believe we're just about ready. Is that right?
Thank you very much. Yeah, we all almost reached the time. I would like to thank on behalf of the committee. It was very useful sermon during this environment. Hopefully everyone got something from this sermon. And thank you very much again. Just for any Pirikara donations, I have put the link suttacentral.net. That is SUTTACENTRAL, one word, .net. Just go there and there's a donation tab. Just click on that one and then you can donate the Pirikara. So everything is changing, isn't it, Bhante?
Right.
So just click on that link and you can donate Pirikara as well. Again, thank you very much, Bhante. I hope we can have another session in near future.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everybody there in the community. And I wish you, may you all be well and happy. May you thrive in the Dhamma. Sadhu, sadhu.
Everyone, Sarnai.
Everyone, sadhu.